I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest, life and relationship coach, primarily focus on helping couples improve their relationships, other than Mr. Abhishek Joshi.
Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well.
Welcome, welcome on Book 101 Review, Mr. AJ. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, so I am a relationship coach and I specifically help couples who are married and struggling to figure out what their next step is, especially when they're stuck in a situation where they don't know how to move forward. And that's primarily where my expertise comes in. I try to help them with communication strategies and negotiation strategies that will unlock the solution and help them figure out how to move forward. Sometimes nothing needs to be done, sometimes solutions come out through communication. That's my expertise, and I bring in a whole lot of experience from my software engineering world. I bring in experience from personal development, I bring in experience from business, combine all the strategies to help couples really move forward.
Really moving forward indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world.
Thank you, of course.
So, today let's talk about boundaries. So, can you tell us about this topic?
Boundaries is such an interesting topic, and it's something a lot of people struggle with. Boundaries essentially is when you feel like something is beyond what you accept. So let's say someone calls you an idiot in public again and again. You don't find that acceptable. And you want to set a boundary. A boundary is basically a line of behavior that someone cannot cross. And that's as simple a definition as I can put.
Why do you think so many people struggle to set healthy boundaries?
I think the reason they struggle with setting boundaries is because they cannot set boundaries with themselves. And somewhere along the line of when they were growing up, they were taught that setting boundaries is wrong, or setting boundaries is not acceptable, or they got negative consequences for setting boundaries. And so as a result, they just didn't know what to do after that. And so they learned that they cannot set boundaries, and they couldn't even comprehend this idea of setting boundaries to people.
Mr. AJ, how can we tell the difference between boundary and a wall?
A wall is when you're hiding. A wall is when it comes from fear. A wall is when you don't want to let other people in and you don't want to be vulnerable. A wall is when you don't want to expose certain part of yourself. A boundary is more about the behavior. It's about someone else's behavior that is not acceptable.
What misconceptions do people often have about boundaries?
One of the common misconceptions is that when you set a boundary, someone else has to listen to you. So, for example, people think setting boundaries is telling someone you cannot do this. But in reality, it's actually not that. Setting boundaries is taking control of your own. You say that if you behave like this, if you call me an idiot in public again, I am going to walk away. Or if you call me an idiot in public again, our relationship is over. I will never be around you. So it's a change from expecting the other person to change their behavior to actually what you're going to be doing.
Mr. AJ, let's talk about the personal growth. Can you share a personal story where setting a boundary changed your life for a better?
I think there are so many occasions where boundaries comes into play, but one of the most specific situations that comes into play is I was working with a client, And this client, it's not about my story. I want to give this client story because it's relevant to relationships. This client had trouble setting boundaries with their spouse. Now, they didn't like how the spouse was behaving at home. They didn't like how the spouse was living their life. And so the recommendation was you need to set certain behaviors, boundaries of what you accept and what you don't accept. And the immediate response was, how can I do that? That person's not going to listen to me. But the moment I explained to them that a boundary is about saying what you will choose to do if they cross the line of behavior, that's when it started running certain wheels in their mind. And they started realizing, okay, this is what I need to do. And so they're still in the process of implementing what they've understood. But I feel that's an example of how boundaries can change your life.
How do boundaries contribute to self respect and self worth, Mr. AJ?
I think when you can set boundaries, you prove to yourself that there's a standard of living. There's a standard you set for yourself, and you don't let it go no matter who it is. That's the power of boundaries. You set a bar for your life. And when you have a bar like that, it automatically improves the kind of people you have around you. And when that improves, your self-esteem, your self-worth, they all go up. How you view yourself basically shifts.
Very well said, Mr. AJ. Very well said and empowering indeed.
Thank you.
What role does self awareness play in recognizing the need for boundaries?
Self-awareness is about knowing what your strengths are and what are areas you need to improve on. When you are aware about the areas you need to improve on, you will get to know, you'll have a better understanding of the areas where you're not able to set boundaries. And that's how awareness plays a role into or that's how boundaries play a role into self-awareness, or vice versa. My tongue is switching, but that's how powerful they are.
Powerful indeed. And how can setting boundaries help without avoiding burnout or overwhelm?
How can boundaries help avoid burnout? I think it's
Yes.
so when you set boundaries, you make it very clear about what you will do and what you won't do, and no matter what the consequence, or no matter what tantrums the other side holds. And the same thing plays into your professional environment. When you say you're not willing to do certain things, I was just speaking to a friend a few days ago, and there was a professional environment issue where the manager was not doing certain things right and was offloading their responsibility onto an employee. And it got to this person after a few months, and they said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be taking this responsibility anymore. And it was until that point, it felt like this person was getting towards burnout. And as soon after they set the boundary, that extra load that was placed on them was taken away. And that's the power of boundaries.
The power of boundaries indeed. And let's talk about the relationships. How do boundaries strengthen rather than weaken relationships?
I think the same concept applies, that when you set boundaries, you make it very clear about the kind of person you are. It also tells the other person what behaviors are okay and not okay. And if this person doesn't like your boundaries, they're not going to stay in your life. So instead of saying it strengthens or weakens your relationships, it improves it improves the kind of people who are there, because the people who are there will know how to respect your boundaries. And when they can respect those boundaries, you can have better quality of life and a better quality of relationships with them.
What are some red flags that indicate someone is consistently crossing your boundaries?
If you feel resentful towards someone, and when I say resentful, it's this expectation of someone shouldn't have done this, and you feel upset inside, but you can't say it to the other person because you want to be nice, that's your red flag. Because you're now aware that this person has crossed the boundary, and that's basically using your self-awareness to understand what behaviors have triggered you, and using that understanding to now learn what boundaries you need to set.
Mr. AJ, how or what advice would you give to someone who fears conflict when asserting boundaries?
If you fear conflict when setting boundaries, then you're allowing the wrong type of person to be in your life. Because if there is a conflict with this person, it means that they, in the long term, are not able to understand what boundaries are okay and not okay, which means they are not the type of person you want in your life. And if you're afraid to set boundaries because this person will leave, your quality of life will eventually degrade. And that's the impact that you're going to have lifelong with not being able to set a boundary.
Mr. AJ, as a coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short term is to do more podcasts to actually help a lot more people to understand and give them value with what's possible. Long term goal, at least at the moment, is to help 100 couples save their marriage.
Good luck to your goals and
Thank
looking
you.
forward for more success. And what
Thank
would
you.
be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a coach like you?
Learn to be curious. A lot of us are too busy trying to speak instead of listen, and we are too lost in our own perspective. To be a good coach, you need to first learn to understand the other person's perspective. You need to first learn to ask good questions to understand why someone behaved this way. And you need to learn to come from a place of an empathy rather than judgment. It is one of the most critical skills you can develop. Once you have that kind of curiosity, you learn how to ask good questions. You can lead people towards awareness and changing their behavior through that awareness.
Awareness indeed. And be curious always, people. Who knows, you will be the next Einstein. And thank you for that advice, Mr. AJ. And can you
Of
please
course.
recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
The number one book that I would recommend that personally helped my life is called Never Split the Difference. It taught me communication strategies from an FBI negotiator that I've used in multiple areas of my life. I've used it in relationships. I've used it in coaching. I've used it in sales. I've used it in business. I've used it in my software engineering career. Every place needs communication, and when you can master that, you can do so much in your life. The other book, actually two more books that truly changed my life is by Tony Robbins. It's called Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. Incredible books. You will truly learn about internal psychology and personal development and how that plays a role in everything you do. Once you understand these things, you'll start seeing the world in a different light. And if someone's interested in business, there are other books that I can recommend. Go check out this author, Alex Hormozy. He's incredible. Make sure to check him out.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. AJ. And let's talk about the professional life, about boundaries. Why are boundaries crucial in the workplace?
We covered a part of it, which is if you don't set boundaries, it can lead you to feeling burnout because you're not able to tell people that you cannot accept more load than this. You cannot accept this, or this is not okay. This kind of work that's coming to you is not something you want to work on. The second reason it's really important is someone who can set a boundary is seen as someone who is an authority. Someone, let me repeat this, someone who can set a boundary and speak their mind clearly is seen from an authoritative position. Because if you don't have the confidence to set a boundary, you cannot be in a place of authority. And that in itself will change how people see you in a professional environment.
Very well said again, Mr. AJ. Truly, truly empowering
Thank
answer.
you.
How can leaders and managers set healthy boundaries while still being supportive?
Boundaries is not a bad thing. The question that you've asked implies that boundaries is a bad thing. Boundaries is basically trying to explain the lines of behaviors that are acceptable and not acceptable. But eventually, they're about setting a bar. So, leaders and managers can set boundaries which help improve the culture in a company. I was listening to this author, Alex Ramosi, and he was talking about boundaries. So, for example, let's say someone comes into a meeting 20 minutes late and you don't say anything. You have just communicated to the entire team that it's okay to come late. But if you, in a professional way, set the boundary that you've come late today, this is not acceptable. If you have certain reasons, please speak to me behind closed doors. That communicates that this is not a bar you're willing to let slip. So boundaries doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It can be such a powerful tactic to help build the right kind of culture in a company.
Mr. AJ, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in the fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in each season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. AJ, if someone listening today or watching us, what take away just one lesson about boundaries or boundaries? What do you hope it is?
I'll explain it in a few steps. First, understand what behavior is being crossed. Second, think about what you will do if this person crosses the boundary next time. Third, if you cannot implement it, think about what's the challenge, because that is the problem. It's not this other person's behavior, it's what's stopping you from letting them do this behavior. These three things will help you set better boundaries.
Mr. AJ, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Yes. So
Absolutely.
can you please invite our listeners to support your coaching, your projects, or anything that you want to promote right now?
Of course. So, for anyone who's listening to this, if you or your someone in your circle is having troubles with their relationships and they don't know if their relationship or marriage can be saved, I have a free 5-minute video which will tell you within the span of those 5 minutes 5 questions whether you should move forward trying to save your relationship or you need to take the exit door. Check out the show notes. Hopefully, Daniel will link that up to help you guys out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Abhishek Joshi because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Mr. AJ, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Moticom people, see you soon.